North Texas town Wednesday night. A tornado warning went out in Matador, Texas around 8 p.m. In addition to the loss of life, the twister left around a dozen buildings damaged. In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams remains tight-lipped on who could possibly replace outgoing NYPD Commissioner, African-American Keyshawn Sewell. The first female police commissioner announced her abrupt departure last week, but didn't give a reason as to why she's leaving. Adams says right now he has a police commissioner that he likes, and she is still running the department until she's out the door. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Got the Siglet in Bell Gardens still, 710 north and south on the Florence Avenue off-ramp shut down for police activity. Northbound drive is still from the 105. Southbound drive not looking too bad. Got a crash in Sun Valley, moved to the shoulder 5 southbound for the 170. That's still slow from the 118, but that's sitting out. And you got a vehicle stalled in down delay on the 10 eastbound of the 110. That's got the right lane blocked off. Watch your delay starting at Western Avenue. In Industry, got a crash off the 60 westbound at 7th Street. Left lane taken away there, and that's still from Hacienda.
Ready to take control of your phone plan? Well, then you better take that next turn to a Verizon store. Because my plan from Verizon is the kind of control we all deserve. Get exactly what you want. Only pay for what you need. Get my plan at your Verizon store today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Get used to saying this name and hearing it a lot. Victor Wembanyama. He's a 7'4", 19-year-old phenom from France, and he'll be the number 1 pick in tonight's NBA draft. Wembanyama will be drafted by the San Antonio Spurs, who won the number 1 pick in last month's draft lottery. Wembanyama has the ball handling skills of a guard, can shoot the 3 and block shots. He's the most celebrated rookie to come into the NBA since LeBron was the number 1 pick out of high school in 2003. Draft coverage begins at 5 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. No lottery action for the Lakers or Clippers tonight. The Clippers have the 30th pick, the last pick of the first round. The Lakers have the 17th pick. This would be their first selection in the first round in 5 years. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from the Merck Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere in the world. And once again, if you've not been tuning in every morning to First Things First with Dominic DePrima, you are missing some pretty amazing programming from the motherland, South Africa to be specific. And I underscore and remind you that there are folk in South Africa right now listening to us live on the app. So anywhere you are in the world, you can listen live in real time, but only if you download the app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I'm delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, I think it's true that the more you understand someone's history, the better you can see their humanity. I've said many times that we will never, this is my own point of view, we will never come into the fullness of our own humanity if we cannot respect and revel in the humanity of the other. So it seems to me then that the more you understand someone else's history, the better you can see their humanity. We'll have a conversation in hour 2 with Dr. Terrence Lester about how confronting buried history can help to build racial solidarity. That's hour 2. In our third hour, 2 conversations. Up first, the son of soul singer Aaron Neville, Grammy Award winner Ivan Neville, will join us for a conversation about his latest project. And on the B side of hour 3, actor Javon Johnson joins us live in studio. But let's commence today's show talking politics with our national political affairs analyst and the host of the Sunday Public Affairs show, A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s, Dr. Niquartalai Corte. Niquartalai, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be home here at KBLA.
You look well. You don't sound so well. that voice is it just a morning thing?
It's just a morning thing,
okay.
And it's a Juneteenth thing.
Oh, I got it. You still, yeah. I saw you out there at the celebration.
We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, I saw you out there getting your groove on, having a good time. No, it was a great time, and I've said many times over the last couple of days how grateful I am. It almost doesn't seem like 2 years went by that fast. But here we are in year 3, and we're rolling, man.
2 years feels like 2 decades.
Yeah. As he said in the black church, amen right. to that.
I mean, covering Trump alone.
Yeah.
That's 1 decade.
We'll get to that in this hour, I'm certain. But before I do that, this is the news that everybody in the political world is talking about. The censure last night of Adam Schiff. I put a call into the congressman this morning and told him to give me a call as soon as he can, and he always returns our phone calls. And so we'll get him on to talk about this, if not today, certainly tomorrow's Friday, the best of Tavis Smiley tomorrow. So if we don't hear from Adam Schiff today, we'll get him on Monday, hopefully, to get his take on this, which I can pretty much assume is disappointment and anger and angst and all of that. He has served honorably in the House for so many years, representing Los Angeles, now running, of course, for the United States Senate, but he was censured last night in what was clearly and purely a partisan act. Your take on what happened to Adam Schiff last night?
Well, I think it's important to remind our listeners that he is one of 25 people in the history of the United States Congress that have ever been censured. Mm-hmm. And, this censure, it's a low point. It's a low point for this Congress. It is a hallmark of the Republicans that are in control of Congress. It makes clear that retribution is not beneath them. Mm-hmm. And retribution for what? Adam Schiff, as the chair of the House Intel Committee, played a principal role in really managing the impeachment of Donald Trump, allowing the facts to take us where they did. And Republicans are mad about that, and they want to make an example out of him. But shout out to Congressman Schiff, for delivering, a stinging rebuke. Mm-hmm. He did not bend. He did not bow. Everybody should really check out, his floor speech, following that censure. And listening to that speech, it leaves you with an understanding that this is somebody who is running for the United States Senate, that has a point of view, that has experience, and that will not shake or shrill when confronted by the hypocrisy of the Republicans in control of the Congress. I'm talking about Speaker McCarthy and the leadership in the House. And so, this is just an opportunity for them to raise money. You can expect Republicans are going to send out lots of solicitations to their base saying, we did what we said we were going to do, which, by the way, has nothing to do with what the American people need right now. A lot of Republicans are running across the country saying that, we're running to fight against the runaway inflation, even though the facts say that inflation is actually coming down. We're running against, Joe Biden and the Democrats, that are trying to, deliver giveaways to their base in the form of student debt relief, student debt cancellation, right? They're not doing anything about the issues that everyday Americans, both Democrat and Republican, care so deeply about. They are invested in hyper-partisan politics, and this is just the latest example.
There were a number of things to your point. It was a brilliant speech. What Adam Schiff had to say last night, if you have not seen it, was brilliant. It was, I think, his high moment. It was a low moment for the Congress, a high moment for Adam Schiff in terms of the way he just laid into them and delivered, I thought, a stinging rebuke of this process and what they were doing last night. One of my favorite lines from him was, "You honor me with your enmity. You honor me with your enmity." Great line. And he got his point across last night, and yet this stands. When we come forward, there's a lot to talk about, though, at least a bit more to talk about regarding this, because I'm curious now as to Nicodelai's critique. He is, of course, our chief national political affairs analyst, easy for me to say. But I'm curious as to how you read the politics on this. As we mentioned, he's running for the U.S. Senate for the seat that Dianne Feinstein, I still think, needs to relinquish. We'll talk about that. But is holding on to, but has said she will not, of course, run for re-election. That's pretty obvious. So it's Adam Schiff, it's Katie Porter, and it is, I'm blanking.
Oh, and
Barbara Lee.
Barbara
Thank
Lee.
you. Jesus, help me, Lord.
Yeah.
The sister, Barbara Lee. I couldn't get her name out of my mouth fast enough. So the three of them are running. It seems to me that, back to that line, you honor me with your enmity, this could help Adam Schiff. The last poll I saw, Katie Porter was slightly ahead. Adam Schiff's killing both of them in fundraising, but Katie Porter was polling slightly ahead of him. This is the kind of stuff, though, that puts you front and center. She's on the front page of every newspaper today. Everybody's talking about it. And I would think this, in some ways, buoys his campaign. And speaking of fundraising, that the Republicans are doing, it might help his fundraising as well. And he's already out front, as I said. A lot to talk about with Adam Schiff and this House censure that he was the victim of or subject to last night, and a great deal more politics to talk about in this hour. Who better than the host of A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s here on KBLA Talk 1580, Dr. Nicodelai Corte. June continues, and we continue with an artist in residence every day, playing the best of this iconic artist, all 3 hours of our program. And today it is the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis, Smiley when we come forward.
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City, in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com, or call 213-978-1845.
I can't wait for what's next. Even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Eliquis, apixaban tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Buying your dream home can be exciting, but it might take some sacrifice. But don't worry, Rocket is here to give you a hand. If you buy with Rocket Homes and finance with Rocket Mortgage, you could get up to $10,000 cash toward closing from Rocket Mortgage. That's a big deal. Why not see how Rocket can help you start your legacy? You got this, and Rocket's got you. Only with Rocket. Visit onlywithrocket.com to get started.
For purchase transactions, only must like rate between 331 and 831. Call 8337 Rocket for conditions and restrictions. Clause A rental license all 50 states. MLS Consumer Access. Number 330.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Change, change, change. 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 Change, change, change of food. For 5 long years, I thought you were my man. But I found I'm just a link in your chain. Oh, you got me where you want me.
In 3 hours, we couldn't do justice to a scintilla of the hits from the Queen, and that says nothing about the B-sides. I've said many times, I've been in many barroom brawls, metaphorically speaking. I'm not a drinker, but I've been in many barroom brawls about the greatest voice of all time, and the top 5 albums of all time. For my money, there is no female voice in the history of music that is better than Aretha Franklin. At the top of her game, you can't fade her. With all due respect to every other female singer who's ever sung a note, for my money, the Queen is the greatest of all time. Her range, that black-infused gospel soul sound that she infused her music with. She could sing jazz, she could sing pop. Remember the night she filled in for Pavarotti at the Grammys? On the spot and killed it. I mean, there's nobody with any range like Aretha Franklin, and her style makes her the greatest of all time. In terms of albums, I could debate you on the top 5 albums of all time, but certainly in that top 5 is Amazing Grace. Her album recorded live here in Southern California, in L.A. So we celebrate the Queen today, as June is Black Music Month, a different artist every day, and today it's Aretha Franklin, and we're going to play some of the best of her stuff all 3 hours of our program. We continue our conversation now with Dr. Nee Quarterly-Corte, our chief national political affairs, I can't say that word political today, and we're talking about politics, chief national political affairs analyst, and the host of A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s. If you've not heard his program on Sundays, you are missing out. Always great conversations with the newsmakers every week here on KBLA Talk 1580. We are honored to have him as our colleague. We were talking a moment ago. Let me get back, to this conversation about Adam Schiff, because, as I mentioned a moment ago, he's running for U.S. Senate here in the state of California. First of all, let me just back up. What have you been saying on your program on Sundays about the Dianne Feinstein situation?
This is a setup question.
No, it's not. I'm just asking. I mean, you heard my point of view. I'm just asking what you've been saying about it, what your guests have been saying about it.
As somebody that grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area that is steeped in the storied history of Dianne Feinstein as a leader, as a dynamic woman leader in particular, it gives me some sadness to see her at this stage in her life of public service, her career, not at the top of her game. And I'm not, speaking out of school on this. I say this as a matter of observation. I say this as a matter of what's been reported. And so, I understand she's not running for re-election, but there are so many important issues that are before the United States Senate. And why not, pass the torch and give somebody a running head start to bring some fresh ideas, fresh perspective to the Senate, representing one of the most populous states in the union, where we certainly have our share of issues that need to be resolved before the Senate. And so that is my personal point of view. I have guests that share a similar point of view, and more importantly, folks off the record, who are watching the clock. And saying, when is she going to pass the torch? And it feels like this election for U.S. Senate here in California has been made harder than it needs to be, because of an inability to let go and pass the torch.
That was very nicely done. I just said she needs to go. With all due respect, the time has come. And it's I could have a conversation for an hour just about this, and not just about Dianne Feinstein, because let's be clear. She's a woman, and there are men who've done this many more times than women have done it because they've had more opportunity to do it, stick around longer than they should have. But there's something in the human psyche, certainly for some of us, who just don't know when to exit stage left. We have not learned, all of us, how to exit gracefully. And I have so much respect for those who just know how to exit gracefully. I had many conversations with Sidney Poitier about this. Many in this audience know, and I've talked about it before, certainly when he passed away, that every other Tuesday for almost 27 years, he and I had lunch together. Actually, 4 of us.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me, very lucky me. But so almost 27 years, every other Tuesday, we had lunch together. Same table, same restaurant, 4 Seasons, Beverly Hills. Just a great time, and I learned so much from him over that almost 30-year friendship. But one of the things that he always talked about, and I learned so much from him about, was how to exit the stage gracefully. And even into his 80s and 90s, people were still offering him roles. They wanted him to do cameos, and he said, "I'm done with that. I just don't act anymore." And it was very clear from him in those conversations that acting was what he did. It was not who he was. And so many people in this town don't get that. that acting ought to be what you do, not synonymous with who you are. Because when you're no longer acting, or when the phone stops ringing, then you feel depressed and despondent because you don't think there's any meaning or value or purpose to your life because your phone ain't ringing. Well, for all of us, that day comes. And there's some people in all fields, I think, of human endeavor who just stay too long. I'm still mad at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. God rest her soul. Still mad at her for just not stepping. And Obama tried his best.
And we're still paying a heavy price for that, especially as we are waiting for the affirmative action case to be decided before the Supreme Court. The cases related to student debt and so much more that is so important to us. Let me just say this. Another example of a dynamic woman leader in the Congress from San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi. Look at how she passed the torch to Hakeem Jeffries. And look at how she has showed up as a speaker emeritus. She's not pulling focus from Hakeem. She's not subverting him or working around him. And look at how that leadership team sort of transitioned. It took some time and some effort, and there was a lot of pushing and poking and prodding, but it happened. And we're starting to see a changing of the guard. We're starting to see the next generation of leadership assuming positions of power, influence, and authority. And so, I wish that the U.S. Senate seat here in California, currently in the hands of Senator Feinstein, I wish that seat was a part of this story of a changing of the guard. Who knows, how folks' conscience works. There may be a big surprise, before that election. Who knows? But it's definitely it definitely pulls focus from a lot of other things that we should be more focused on, as opposed to a race for U.S. Senate in California that seems to be made harder than it needs to be.
I know a lot of folk in Washington. Of course, I spent a number of years there earlier in my career, but you're much more these days a Washington insider than I am, which is why you are our chief national political affairs analyst. I've read a number of pieces about the Dianne Feinstein matter that suggest that she's holding on, she's hanging in there, primarily because of her staff. It's her staff that's orchestrating this. Those jobs are very coveted on the Hill. She has seniority. She has longevity. And if she were, in fact, to resign, all those folk lose their jobs. Now, some of them would stick around because whoever one would assume that Gavin Newsom would appoint a caretaker. I think it'd be very improper for him to appoint any of the three who are running to the seat right now. It gives them an unfair advantage come election. So you assume that he put somebody in there as a caretaker. Maybe they hold on to their jobs for a little while, but there are a lot of jobs at stake if Dianne Feinstein steps aside. And so there are people on her staff who are wheeling her around and pushing her around and telling her to read this and read that and whispering in her ear, telling her what to say. There's something in this for them as well, as long as she has that job.
Well, but I know a number of former staffers of Senator Feinstein, former staffers of Senator Boxer, and former staffers to at least California, Senate members do pretty well, right? Yep. And so I think there's plenty to do, and I think those staffers would be well received across sectors should they become available. And so there's some concerns that the staff may be orchestrating this. There are also some concerns that her family and some of her most devoted supporters over the years may not be saying the quiet part out loud. There are also rumors that Senator Feinstein herself might be a bit stubborn. No surprises there. Sure, and so, all of this to say that there are some critical issues before the U.S. Senate. And, we can't allow these seats, we can't treat these seats like the individuals that occupy them own them.
Correct.
We are all stewards, especially anybody in public service, and I think about even what we do as a public service, right? We don't own these seats. We're stewards of these seats, right? And there's some serious issues here, and I think we should be giving our successors as much of an advantage as possible to be steeped in the important issues before us so that they also can lead.
Well, I can assure you, I will not be behind this mic when I'm 90. Let me assure you, I'm trying to figure out how to cut my 3-hour shift down right now. Michael Jackson, the late, great talk show host, not the singer, not the dancer, Michael Jackson of KBC fame, the best talk show host I've ever heard in my career. Michael used to always tell me, Tavis, with his accent, Tavis, 2 hours is a show. 3 hours, my friend, is a shift. And so this ain't a show I do every day. It's a shift, and I feel it when I walk out of here some days. 3 hours, and then you spend the rest of your day trying to help this company build and grow. It's a love thing, no question about it. It's a love thing, but it's challenging. Let me buttonhole this Adam Schiff thing in the 2 minutes we have left, and then we'll continue with other stuff on the other side of news, traffic, and sports. Right quick, in 2 minutes, Adam Schiff. I think he is advantaged by this drama being, of course, the censure last night in this race for the U.S. Senate. I think it leads to more exposure. I think it leads to more money. I think it leads to maybe improved polling. And certainly he has, again, he wears it as a badge of honor. Your thoughts? Agreed.
I mean, this is probably one of the best things that could have happened to Representative Schiff. Look, he has been a pariah for folks on the right. They have, even Donald Trump himself, hasn't missed an opportunity to take a shot at Adam Schiff.
They call him Shifty Schiff.
Right.
That's their nickname for him, Shifty Schiff.
Yeah. And I think this is a time where we want to see more Democrats standing up to folks on the right, standing firm on some of the most important issues. I mean, defense of our democracy is a bedrock issue, and I bet he's going to run on that. He's going to raise a lot of money off of that, and he is going to be a formidable candidate in this race for U.S. Senate here in California. He already is.
It was ugly, though. There was screaming, there was yelling, there was cussing last night. I mean, it made the House of Commons look tame last night. It was a low moment. If you watched it, just a low moment. The behavior, the misbehavior, acting like miscreants and children. It was sad to watch.
It almost sounds like the race for speaker.
Yeah,
remember that?
That's what it was exactly. It was that plus. I think it just an ugly moment for American democracy last night. But I digress. Much more to talk about politically when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports with our own Quarterly Corte on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Welcome to a Thursday, everyone. It is June 22nd. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Texas, at least 4 people are dead after a tornado ripped through a tiny North Texas town Wednesday night. A tornado warning went out in Matador, Texas around 8 p.m. In addition to the loss of life, the twister left around a dozen buildings damaged. In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams remains tight-lipped on who could possibly replace outgoing NYPD Commissioner, African-American Keyshawn Sewell. The first female police commissioner announced her abrupt departure last week, but didn't give a reason as to why she's leaving. Adams says right now he has a police commissioner that he likes, and she is still running the department until she's out the door. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Got the Siglet in Bell Gardens still, 710 North and South on the Florence Avenue off-ramp shut down for police activity. Northbound drive is up on the 105. Southbound drive not looking too bad. Got a crash in Sun Valley, moved to the shoulder 5 southbound for the 170. That's still slow from the 118, but that's sitting out. And you got a vehicle stalled in down delay on the 10 eastbound or the 110. That's got the right lane blocked off. Watch your delay starting at Western Avenue. In Industry, got a crash off the 60 westbound at 7th Street. Left lane taken away there, and that's still from Hacienda.
Ready to take control of your phone plan? Well, then you better take that next turn to a Verizon store. Because my plan from Verizon is the kind of control we all deserve. Get exactly what you want. Only pay for what you need. Get my plan at your Verizon store today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Get used to saying this name and hearing it a lot. Victor Wembanyama. He's a 7'4", 19-year-old phenom from France, and he'll be the number 1 pick in tonight's NBA draft. Wembanyama will be drafted by the San Antonio Spurs, who won the number 1 pick in last month's draft lottery. Wembanyama has the ball handling skills of a guard, can shoot the 3 and block shots. He's the most celebrated rookie to come into the NBA since LeBron was the number 1 pick out of high school in 2003. Draft coverage begins at 5 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. No lottery action for the Lakers or Clippers tonight. The Clippers have the 30th pick, the last pick of the first round. The Lakers have the 17th pick. This would be their first selection in the first round in 5 years. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The pandemic may be over, but many Angelinos could be at risk of losing the place they call home. It's important to know your rights as a residential renter in the city of LA. Did you know eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt that was due before March 31st, 2023? And that you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice, also known as an unlawful detainer. Learn more about your rental rights at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
Another exciting event hosted by Malik Books, Saturday, June 24th at 2 p.m., Westfield Culver City Mall. Next up, the newly published author Aisha Harris, co-host and critic for the hit NPR podcast, Pop Culture Happy Hour. Hot off the press, Wannabe Reckonings with Pop Culture That Shapes Me by Aisha Harris. Join us for discussion and book signing. Moderated by Erica Kendrick, Saturday, June 24th at 2 p.m., Malik Books at Westfield Culver City Mall. Wannabe is part memoir, part critical exercise, a blend of personal experiences growing up and consuming pop culture with a thoughtful examination of issues and conundrums audiences face every day. Interracial friendships, obsessive fandom, nostalgia, and intergenerational trauma. See you at the next book signing at Malik Books. That's MalikBooks.com again. MalikBooks.com.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
It was the man who bled and suffered. You know he died for you and for me. I'm gonna thank you because you brought me, Lord. I wanna thank you, Jesus, because you taught me. I wanna thank you because you kept me. I'm gonna thank you because you never left me. I wanna sing. I just might shout this evening. My soul looks back and wonder how I got over.
So I said earlier that that's my part right there. Turn that up, Miles. I said earlier that on my list of the greatest albums of all time, and you can debate the order, but Amazing Grace, Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie, and Marvin, What's Going On? You got any albums better than those three? Holla at me. I want to know what you listening to. There's nothing greater than Songs in the Key of Life, What's Going On, and Amazing Grace. And if you haven't seen the documentary, Amazing Grace, about the night Aretha recorded this live, not too far from the studio, as Nicordelai was just saying, it's quite a documentary just to watch her. And my favorite part is the camera pans to the back of the church, and there's some little white guy who's just getting the Holy Ghost. He's just having church, and that guy happens to be Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones, who was in the audience that night. It was quite I would have loved to have been in the church that night when they recorded this album, but it's June, Black Music Month, and so we're playing the best of any number of iconic artists throughout the month, and today all 3 hours of our program, some of the best of Aretha Franklin. We continue our conversation now, though, talking politics with Aretha was pretty politically astute and appeared at a couple of inaugurations and performed. So she, when she and I would talk all the time, she was very much into politics and watched C-SPAN and watched CNN almost all day long, kept it on wherever she was, in her house, in her dressing room, on the bus. So she was quite astute at politics. Of course, you all know, as a young child, Dr. King, whenever he came to Detroit, stayed at their family home. Her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, and Dr. King were very dear friends. And so Aretha would oftentimes cook for Dr. King and change his bed. And she considered Dr. King an uncle, essentially, and raised a lot of money for Dr. King and the movement. I mean, she started making hits. She would use performances to raise money for the movement. So she was very, very much involved in the political affairs of our community. And we love and miss the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Nicordelai Corte is our guest in this hour as we continue to talk politics. And so there was a big announcement made by another African-American this morning on one of the national shows. I'll let Nicordelai unpack this. But by my count, Nicordelai, there are now 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, unless I'm missing somebody. There are 4 African-Americans running for president at the same time. Tim Scott, Republican. Cornel West, who was on this program as his first big interview after his announcement, running for president on the Green Party ticket. Larry Elder, former talk show host, running for the Republican nomination, and an announcement this morning.
Yes, Will Hurd, a former Texas congressman, who was a part of the diminishing bloc of Republican moderates, it has announced this morning that he's running for president. And this is someone who has not minced words. He has referred to Donald Trump as lawless, as selfish, as a failed politician. And so not only are we seeing a record number of African-American men running for president, but we're also seeing the rhetoric against Trump sort of ratcheting up. And so not only from, candidates like Will Hurd, but former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan has been on a media blitz where he has not minced words about how much the Republican Party needs to turn the page on Trump. And so you're starting to see candidates, really lean in and have a more forward-looking, more aggressive, forward-looking message. Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, no different in that regard. But this is a moment. And Tavis, I think it's important to remind people, that this may be a part of the legacy of Barack Obama having run for president successfully, having been a two-time president. The fact that now he has opened up the opportunity for folks on all sides of the aisle, right? And no parts of the aisle to run for president. And so, this is going to be a very animated 2024 election cycle. This is assuming that they stay in the race through most of, if not all of, the Republican primary. It's going to be interesting with regard to Dr. Cornel West to see, does he meet the threshold in certain early states to make it onto the ballot? Does he meet the threshold to be on the debate stage? A lot of folks say, well, so-and-so doesn't seem like they got a chance of winning. It depends on how you define winning.
That's right.
And obviously winning ultimately means getting the nomination and being elected president of the United States. But short of that, winning means socializing your agenda, socializing your point of view, your policy prescriptions on issues that are important to everyday Americans. And so, Dr. Cornel West did not mince words in terms of the issues that are important to him, that he looks to inject into this debate as to who will lead us from the Oval Office for the next 4 years. And it's going to be interesting to see, how Will Hurd performs, because this is somebody who has a reputation for having reached across the aisle. In 2017, he famously took a road trip from Texas to D.C. with Beto O'Rourke. In what universe today do we see that sort of demonstration of collegiality among members of Congress? And so this is the latest Republican to watch in the run for president.
You said something a moment ago that got my attention, and I was laughing about that old adage that great minds think alike. So I was thinking the exact same thing you were thinking it as you were saying it, and that is this connection to Barack Obama. I've said many times, for all the hell that I caught, all the critique that I got for my commentary about Barack Obama back in the day, I remind people I voted for him twice, and I voted for him twice because my hope was. I wasn't stuck on stupid, but I was hoping that his election would open progressive possibilities for other people. I hoped his election would open the door to progressive possibilities for other people. That didn't quite happen. Barack Obama, to be clear, did not have coattails. There is no evidence anywhere of black coattails for Barack Obama. Jesse Jackson, very different conversation. When Jesse ran in 84 and 88, look at the numbers. There were all kind of black folk across the country who got elected to all kind of offices because Jesse Jackson had coattails. Barack Obama is historic, but there is no political evidence anywhere that Barack Obama had progressive coattails. But I think you are right about this. What he did do was open the door for black people in the Republican Party, Cornel West as an independent, and I celebrate this. To your point, I love the way you put it, on either side of the aisle or on no side of the aisle. I love the way you phrased that, because you got independents running now, black people, Cornel. You got Republicans running, Will Hurd and Tim Scott and Larry Elder. You got we've had Democrats run, of course. Cory Booker ran, and a lot of them. Al Sharpton, and all the way back to Nancy, all the way back to Shirley Chisholm, for that matter. So, but I like this. I like this frame, and what I'm getting to is. I like this notion, this idea that we are normalizing black folk running for president. And that's a big deal. It's normalized.
It's a very big deal. And it's also a reminder, black folks are not a monolith. We certainly say that and we celebrate that here on KBLA Talk 1580. And it is true. It is true, that there are lots of points of view. You go into any black barbershop, you go into, black churches across America, not just in places like California, New York, D.C., right? But you go into these places and we hear the difference of opinions. We hear what conservatism looks like and sounds like from the mouths, from the lived experiences of black folks. And so if folks are being honest, there's a saying that we know very, very well, which is that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? And so this is a part of the test, right? Are we going to see folks that may be kinfolk to some of us, maybe not all of us, but are we going to see them being honest on those debate stages, being honest in the debate on these issues that impact our communities? I wouldn't hold my breath for all of them, but I think some of them may surprise us.
Yep. I think that great quote comes from Zora Neale Hurston. All my skin folk ain't my kin. I think that's Zora Neale Hurston. Before we come forward, let me just say to the point that Nicola made a moment ago that we are not a monolith. I announced on this program yesterday, you heard him as a guest on this program. There's a new program premiering on Sundays just before Nicola's program, called The Reconstruction Project. It premieres this Sunday, hosted by a guy named John Wood Jr. And John Wood Jr.'s politics are not Nicola's politics. They are not my politics. But he's a fascinating guy to listen to and to talk to. You heard him on this program yesterday. We've been promoting all this week 5 new shows on our station this week as we premiere, as we jump into year 3. But John Wood Jr.'s program is called The Reconstruction Project, premieres this Sunday at 9 a.m. in advance of A More Perfect Union Sundays on the 10s on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Bob Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To sign up for our newsletter or to support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talents, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus, Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Hey LA, I'm Pastor Xavier Thompson inviting you to join us for a special night of compassion and community rally for Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas at the Southern Missionary Baptist Church, 4678 West Adams Boulevard in the city of Los Angeles, Friday, June the 23rd, 7 p.m. This will be a time for the community to undergird Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas and his family as we approach the upcoming court hearing, which will determine whether or not he gets a new trial. We are urging all constituents, supporters, partners, friends, and well-wishers, those who seek justice for this courageous champion of our community, to join us Friday, June the 23rd, 7 o'clock p.m., the Southern Missionary Baptist Church, 4678 West Adams Boulevard. Let's encourage Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas with our presence, participation, and our prayers. See you there.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis, Excuse me, I'm Tavis Smiley. He's Nicola Quartet. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. Got choked up there. And we're talking politics in this hour. Speaking of these crazy Republicans, the hardliners were in full effect last night during that censure of Adam Schiff, as we were discussing earlier. And now they're pressing on this Biden impeachment vote. So, again, we knew all this nonsense was going to happen. We knew it was coming. But in real time, it just feels really, bizarre to have Republicans now pushing for a Biden impeachment vote. How are you tracking this? And what's your thought on that, Nicola?
I think this is just another example of how the Republicans took control of the House, and they're doing everything but what they said they were going to do for the people, And I think for the Republicans that are in districts that Biden won, this is going to be really tricky. And so, are they really going to co-sign on this faux impeachment vote, this hyper-partisan impeachment vote that is completely unwarranted? Are they going to put their name on that? Or, are they going to deliver an embarrassment to Speaker McCarthy and Republican leadership? This is just quite a distraction against, so many of the issues that are really important to the people. And so, we'll see where this lands. But this Biden impeachment vote, it's probably rushed, right? Because impeachment on what grounds?
Doesn't matter to them,
right?
Any grounds, no grounds, all grounds.
It is a purely hyper-partisan move. It is going to be another poison pill, thrown into the well in Washington. And this is just, the beginning of what is to come. This is going to be a very challenging election cycle for our country. Usually, Congress is able to get work done up until maybe, the summer before the actual election, where, folks are just in pure campaign mode. Well, we're seeing that we're seeing that move up on the calendar. And if you're saying that between now and November 2024, it's game on and folks are starting to campaign right now, that means a lot of stuff is not going to get done. Thank goodness that the president was able to negotiate raising the debt ceiling, not just for 1 year, but for 2 years. And so we won't have to have that debate until after the 2024 election. But can you imagine if we would have had to have that debate sooner than that?
Yeah. It would have been ugly. Speaking of the election, a quick Trump conversation, and we'll move on to Justice Samuel Alito. I want to get to this before we run out of time. So I haven't seen you or talked to you. I've seen you. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. We were partying when I last saw you.
Celebrating freedom.
Celebrating freedom, yeah, and our second anniversary, so we didn't get a chance to talk politics that day. But I'm sure you'll be covering this Sunday on your program. The date has now been set for the trial, August 14th. Nobody believes it's actually going to start on the 14th, but it's going to be delayed. Let me rephrase that. They will convene on the 14th. Proceedings will begin on August the 14th, but everybody expects numerous delays, and so the question is whether or not this thing can be delayed by Trump and his attorneys or the judge in the case, Eileen Cannon, appointed by Donald Trump. As you know, can this thing be delayed until after the election? My sense is yes. I don't see this case coming to fruition before the election. I'd love to be wrong about that. I just don't see it, knowing how our system of jurisprudence works and how these delays work. That said, the judge did set a date of August 14 for the proceedings to begin. Again, I know you'll be covering that this Sunday. What's your read on that?
I agree with you that I don't think this trial is going to happen. I don't think it's going to start in August. I think the Trump team is going to do everything they can to push. But I also think that there is some value for him as a reality TV star, not just a former president, but a former reality TV star. I think you don't underestimate Trump's ability to, use this as fodder, use this as a way to garner more earned media than he would have had otherwise. And so I'm a little concerned that there are so many trial dates that are being lined up, not just starting here in August, but, there are, dates set for Q1 of 2024, right? And so, some people say, well, how is he going to, manage being, in trial while also competing during the Republican primaries in 2024? I think that just means more attention for Trump, and I think media has not quite figured out, Tavis, how to cover the former president, without giving too much. And I think the CNN town hall was an example of that. It's one thing to say, okay, well, he's a declared candidate, for the Republican nomination. He's a former president, and so we should be covering him. And I agree with that. But where I disagree with is, it doesn't mean you have to have a live studio audience. It doesn't mean you need to pack the audience with, supporters of the former president. It doesn't mean that you need to have a single anchor questioning him. You could have a whole panel of folks that are questioning him. There are lots of other ways in which CNN could have gone about doing that. And so all of these things together, Tavis, I think may help Donald Trump more than it hurts him.
Speaking of helping him, I wouldn't call it conventional wisdom, but there are many of us, I include myself in this, who feel that we were discussing Will Hurd getting in the race earlier in this hour. The more Republicans that run, the better for Trump. They will divide the anti-Trump vote inside the party, and Trump ends up being number one anyway. That's right. And I think, is that how you see it?
I think it's exactly how I see it, because the MAGA crowd ain't going nowhere.
Exactly.
They are Trump to the very end and then some. But you're right. It is the moderate Republicans, in which case a Will Hurd would appeal to moderate Republicans. Who the only person who's really going to appeal to the MAGA crowd is going to be Ron DeSantis, right? And so I think what they're betting is that what if Trump and Ron DeSantis sort of split the MAGA vote? Is there an opportunity for a more moderate candidate or a consensus candidate to kind of ride up the middle, right? I think that is hopeful. That's wishful thinking, especially considering that DeSantis doesn't seem to be overtaking Trump at all. Although we see Trump's numbers beginning to soften
slightly
in the polls, but it's too early to say that that's a trend.
2 minutes to go here. I want to get to this very quickly. Justice Alito, it ain't just Clarence Thomas anymore. Now we know Samuel Alito was taking private jet trips and luxury fishing trips as well. He jumped out in front of the ProPublica story with a piece in the Wall Street Journal saying that he didn't have to report this. Here's a guy who took trips from another billionaire who did, in fact, have issues come before the Supreme Court that Alito was sitting on. So now it's not just Clarence Thomas, it's Samuel Alito, and everybody, these justices rather, keep defending themselves. I think that John Roberts has to do something about this. All this does is continue to erode what little trust is left in the Supreme Court.
Not only is there a deficit of trust with the Supreme Court among we the people, but there is a deficit of integrity. And as you read the Samuel Alito story, the Justice Alito story, it's amazing to me how comparable it is to Justice Thomas's story. I mean, swap out the names of the billionaires, and it's still a luxury trip, worth six figures, right? And for folks to act like, well, I went on a trip, but, they didn't tell me anything improper. If we can't trust you to do the ethical thing, to do the moral thing, if we can't trust you to look out for the interests of the institution and report on this, properly, as opposed to getting ahead of ProPublica and issuing an op-ed in Wall Street Journal to circumvent having to respond to their questions, right? That's the behavior of somebody who seems like they're trying to hide something. And it should give we the people no comfort that we have Supreme Court justices that appear to be experts at hiding some of their private, quote unquote, private dealings that become public when they come before the court.
With Justice Clarence Thomas, it was Harlan Crow, as Nicola said, and with Justice Samuel Alito, it's a billionaire named Paul Singer, wealthy hedge fund manager, Republican donor, and a billionaire who frequently has cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, friend of Samuel Alito. So once again, it ain't just Clarence Thomas, it's Samuel Alito as well. Something has to be done sooner than later about this nonsense, this cheating, frankly, as it were, by U.S. Supreme Court justices. We'll leave it there for now. Nick Cordelite, good to see you. I'll talk to you soon, my friend. A More Perfect Union, Sundays on the 10s, only on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Democratic African-American Congressman Kwesi Mfume of Maryland and Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland are introducing legislation aimed at protecting college athletes from heat-related deaths and illnesses.